Hey, welcome everybody. This is another episode of the Lease Option live stream. I'm your host, Justin Chamness. But today, on this Friday edition, we have a very special treat. I'm super excited to be a part of this actual next hour where we're going to dive into the topic that's very hot today. Very hot today. And we have a very special guest that is an expert on that topic, the topic of subject to real estate investing. And the guest here you see already is William Tingle. Now, he really needs no introduction, but I also want him to tell us a little bit more about himself when he takes over here in a minute. But if you want to hop in here and ask William Tingle questions with me, you're more than welcome to, okay? I have billed this event as help me interview William Tingle, all right? Because I know some of you out there have great questions, especially about subject to. I'm not the subject to expert. William Tingle is. So if you want to come in here and ask your questions, Angel is here. Thank you for being here, Angel. I'm sure you have a question or two. But if you want to jump in here, it is zoomjustin.com. zoomjustin.com. All right. You might also put something in the comments or the chat where you're watching, and we'll try to feed those over here to William and get a good answer for you. So, but we'd like you to hop in here in the Zoom room if you would. Zoomjustin.com. Hey, William Tingle, so honored that you're here, man. Thanks for being here. And we want to just jump right in with you. And I want to stop talking and let you take control. You've got an interesting way that you got into real estate investing, an interesting story. Yeah. And can you give us kind of the lowdown on that? How did you get started, man?
Sure can. Hey, Justin, thanks so much for having me here. I'm proud to be here, honored to be invited. I got started actually. Is it unique? I'll tell you, if you talk to a lot of investors, some of them have a similar story, but my background in a nutshell, I quit school in the ninth grade. So, right away, you're probably dealing with some limited life choices, but I always felt like if I, like most people, if I worked hard, if I, always did my best on my job, I would progress. And I did. I actually got a job as a dishwasher in a Pizza Hut. And, 20 years later, I was director of operation for 3 states for a fast food chain. Usually a position that requires a degree, but I had really worked my way up through the trenches. I made pretty good money at the time. This was the late 90s, and I made 60 grand a year or so, and that wasn't bad money in Macon, Georgia. But I worked 60, 70 hours a week and I never saw my family. And so I was a little tired of that and didn't see any way to move up much further. And one night on late night TV, Carlton Sheets infomercial was on. And, I had watched that thing a million times. But that night I just said, something's got to change. And I ordered it and put it on a credit card because, I was like most people, I spent what I made and a little more. And, the difference was, I opened the book when it came and I just did what he said to do. Step by step. Anybody that's ever had Carlton Sheets course knows it's 3 miles wide and 1 inch deep. It tells you about a lot of stuff, doesn't give you a lot of detail, but I was a motivated person. And, 30 days later, I bought my first house and then I bought another and another and another. And a couple of months later, I looked up and I bought 4 houses. I said, gee, this stuff might really work. So I set a goal to quit my job in a year and how many houses I needed to buy to make that happen. And it was a couple dozen. And by the end of the year, I'd bought a couple of dozen houses. I quit my job and that was 25 years ago. So that's my background and how I got started.
It started off of Carlton Sheets.
That's right.
Man, I got the course too, back probably the same time frame in history. And I didn't go through it. I let it sit there on the coffee table and collect dust.
Right.
And actually, truth be told, I learned from other places eventually, but I went back and bought that same Carlton Sheets course like a couple of years ago and actually finally went through it, man.
Yep.
And you're right. It's incredible too. But what an interesting story you have, man, and coming up, and the whole Pizza Hut thing's pretty interesting. Let's open up here for Angel. She's here. Probably got a question that's about subject to or something like that for William Tingle. So go ahead, Angel.
Are you baiting me?
Baiting you?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So I don't know if I have a specific question.
Okay.
Um, but I know that, subject to um investing has been around a while. I
Right.
mean, it's not a new thing.
Right.
But nowadays there is this buzz. And as with everything, there's a right way to do things and there's a wrong way to do things. And I think there are a lot of wrong ways of doing things out there. And so if people are going to get started and they want to buy a house subject to someone else's mortgage, what are some things that they need to do in order to protect themselves as the buyer, um, and the seller that they're actually taking, that mortgage over for?
Right.
If I baited you, I'm glad because that was great. Thanks,
Right.
Angel.
That's a really good question, Angel, actually. And this is what I tell my students. The biggest thing you can do to protect yourself is proper due diligence into the deal. I'm on Facebook. I'm in a lot of groups. I mean, I'm constantly learning myself and always looking to pick up the next tip that can help me. And I see a lot of people making poor decisions in buying subject to. The biggest, most common one I see today is the misconception that if a seller will hand you the keys and give you a deed, it's automatically a sweet deal. That is just not the case. And one of the biggest examples of how this is used in a way that I think is going to be dangerous, I think we're going to see big problems with this down the road.
Wow.
Here's a typical question. Dear group, a seller's willing to give me their house. They just want to walk away. The PITI is $2,500 a month. The house will only rent for about $2,000 a month. Is this a deal?
Snap.
And tell me you're seeing this, Justin. You know where I'm going
Yeah.
with this thing. Absolutely. That can still be a smoking deal. Just turn it into a short-term rental. Okay. So listen, there ain't no plan B with that plan. Okay. Short-term rentals, the only way you're going to cash flow.
Right.
And what happens when where you live changes their policy and bans short-term rentals? What happens when the market is so saturated? And we're seeing this now with short-term rentals. Your occupancy rate is 25% or less. You're not making enough money to cover that payment. That's a big problem. That's just an example, but proper analysis of that deal. Will it cash flow when a seller finance situation, which is our favorite? And if you're buying a house with a loan at 3.5% interest, and you're going to wrap that at current rate, 6.5, 7.5% interest, is that going to cash flow? You bet. Secondary, what will it rent for? That's the fallback. If you can't sell that house, if the market crashes, whatever's going to happen, have you still got a minimum of $300 to $400 a month in cash flow as a rental? That's your safety net right there. You can rent the house, worst case scenario. That's the number one thing you can do to protect yourself as an investor, Angel. Proper due diligence on the deal. Is it a smart deal? To protect the seller, there's a couple of things you can do. You can give the seller a promissory note and a mortgage or deed of trust that's recorded against the property. In case you fail to make payments, they have a way to get that property back. You don't have to do it that way. My preferred way to do it is a promise to pay and then give them guidelines to get the house back if we fail to pay. But that's the biggest thing you can do to protect your seller and yourself.
So, do you actually have that conversation with the seller when doing a deal with them that, hey, in a worst case scenario, I don't have a crystal ball type thing. There could be a 9/11, there could be an asteroid hit the city. I don't know. But worst case scenario, I'll just, if I get in trouble, I'll just give this house back to you. Are you having that
It is
conversation?
important to have that conversation, Justin. My sellers go in fully aware of all of the possible scenarios. We even created a document. We call it the seller's recourse document, and it lays out the steps. If we fail to make the payment, here is what you need to do. We will deed the property back to you. We sign it, they sign it. It's all part of the closing package. They get a copy of that document. We get a copy of that document. It's all spelled out. We don't have an uninformed seller.
So not only does that make them feel good, but really that makes William sleep good at night too, because you know you haven't hoodwinked anybody about the possibilities here. Like that you're not the creator, you don't control what will unfold in reality, and that you've told everyone as transparently as possible. That makes you feel good too, right? As an investor.
You bet. Disclosure, disclosure, disclosure. That's what I say, and especially in anything out of the norm. And sub two, yeah, it gets talked about a lot right now because it's the flavor of the month right now because of rising interest rates, because wholesalers are finding it harder to do wholesale deals. So they got to flip to creative. We know this, but it has been around a long time. But your seller needs to understand your intent is to buy his house, make the payments, sell it down the road, and make a profit. But that's two things we absolutely point out to our sellers. Number one, we're here to make a profit. This isn't a charity. And number two, stuff happens, life happens. And if it does, we're going to give you this house back so you can move on to the next chapter. So absolutely, you got to cover that.
That's great. You know, I've got a set of questions here that I drew up before this interview, and your answer to Angel's question was so entirely thorough that you answered the entire first five questions.
Well, that's a good thing. So we got room for more questions now. So.
That's great.
So
Lee
I have
popped in
another
here,
one,
but
Justin.
yeah, okay, Angel, sure.
So how do you feel about balloons? Because I taught, and I've not done a subject to deal. I've made some offers. Most people are, not comfortable with it. I'm not savvy. I haven't done this for a million years. I'm actually new to real estate. So, I haven't locked one down, subject to as of this point. But one of the things that they ask about is not just what if you don't pay me, but I want a balloon. Yeah, I'll do that, but I need a balloon in 5 years. And I'm not comfortable doing a balloon. And so I will back away from it at that point if they're insisting, if I can't talk them out of that balloon.
Right. Angel,
So,
that's a great question, and you're super smart to be afraid of those. My answer is really short, and I can't be 100% certain, but I'm almost certain it's Ron LeGrand where I heard it. He said balloons are for clowns. Okay, balloons are for clowns. You can't, and this is my answer to a seller that says, "How long will this mortgage stay in my name?" And my answer is, Mr. Seller, understand that we're going to receive most of our profit upon the actual sale and new mortgage on this property from our buyer. We want this to move along as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, life happens to our buyers, and I can't guarantee you when the loan will be retired. All I can promise you is an on-time payment every month until that happens. And if that balloon date is crucial to you, we just can't do the deal. But there are some things you can put in there. You can give them a balloon, but with a caveat. If interest rates are still above a certain percentage, you have an extra year. Things like that, if it makes you feel better, and that would buy you some extra time. But in general, we just don't accept a balloon from our seller. And we don't give balloons to our buyers either. And there's some Dodd-Frank implications with that we may go into later. But no, if a seller has a tight timeline on that thing, and our exit strategy is to sell with seller finance, so we're dependent on our buyer cashing us out, we just can't make that promise, so we don't do it.
So
and your buyers are owner occupant, right? They're
They
not
are.
other investors.
They are owner occupant buyers, contract for deed sales. And that's how you really maximize your profits on these deals.
So you mentioned wrap a minute ago. Sometimes you wrap for your buyer, and
I
sometimes
use
you contract for deed.
I use the term wrap, Justin, because most people
Okay,
understand wrap. Contract for deed
sure,
seems to confuse a lot of people.
sure.
Uh, and of course, if we define it, a wrap is actually delivering title to your buyer, where you would have to foreclose on them if they didn't pay. A contract for deed is a fully valid sale with all the rights of ownership, where we actually keep legal title. We don't have to and it's beneficial for a lot of reasons. We don't have to foreclose if they don't pay in most states. Um, we also we can keep the property in a trust where liens and judgments from our buyer can attach to the property, so we don't have to do a foreclosure to clean the title if they don't pay. It's just beneficial for a lot of reasons. So
Oh,
we do exclusively contract for deed. Now you can't do that in states like Texas, and there may be a couple of others, but we don't operate in Texas. I go where the laws are beneficial for investors and landlords, and that's where we do business.
that's super good. That's great. Wow. Now you guys really know. If you didn't know, now you know. Uh, William Tingle is the expert on this topic, and he's really packing these answers full. And William, thank you for that, man. I am soaking it in, and I'm going to have to watch the replay really to soak it in a couple times, probably. Lee,
My,
do you got? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
my wife and some of my students actually give me they rib me a lot about if I answer a question in the short version, many times I'll follow that up with and I'll tell you why. And my wife just goes because she knows it's going to be a 5-minute answer, but I try to be very detailed because when you're new you don't know what you don't know, and
Exactly.
details matter.
And it's what you don't know that gets you, right?
It's your trouble. That's right.
Well, that's great. Lee, did you have any questions? Thanks for being here in the room, man.
Hey, no problem. I don't have my camera on because all you guys would see is my ceiling fan anyway. Um, so welcome, William. A couple of questions. Can you guys hear me okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, from what I'm hearing right off the get-go, you answered some of my questions as well. But are you going after, you're doing the deed and the wrap or contract for deed as you normally do it? You're doing all of that in the majority of all of your subject to, correct?
Correct, Lee, and thanks for the question. Actually, last year was a weird year for us. We moved to Northwest Arkansas. We're actually in the Bentonville, Fayetteville, Springdale area in Northwest Arkansas. We moved here, didn't know anybody, started doing some marketing, and we're getting some amazing deals. We actually bought a few sub twos last year that we flipped on the MLS
Right.
and made some incredible profits in what's a hot market with no deal. That's the same story everywhere you go. Man, it's a hot market, you ain't gonna buy nothing. But the majority of the time, our business model is 100% buying subject to, selling on a contract for deed, creating cash flow. Yes.
Okay. Well, there's two camps with lease options and subject to, and sometimes they're very blurred. Um, the kind of the mainstay is people coming from the wholesale and wholesaling lease options, which by far is probably the easiest of the two paths because of the least amount of paperwork and having to actually have the conversation of deed. Do you have any thoughts on the new regulations as far as the wholesaling lease options? I know there are a few states you don't operate in for very good reasons, and I agree with you 100%. But the conversation versus wholesaling the lease option, which is a little faster path, versus actually going through the paperwork, getting the deed, getting the account information for the mortgage, and being able to get in there and actually verify and make sure those payments are made. What are your thoughts on some of the regulations coming down where some people are starting to recommend only doing wraps or contract for deed and moving away from strictly wholesaling, the lease option?
Lease options, we haven't. When I got started, I was like a lot of new investors. I focused on one thing, and then somebody said, "Hey, what about this?" And I said, "Man, that looks great. I'm going to do that for a while too." I've done sandwich lease options. We sold a ton of houses on lease options in the beginning. I think when you're talking about regulation, what you have to understand is what's the reason for the regulation. I think one of the biggest problems investors have today uh, is the NAR. They don't like it. And I'll tell you this because of our experience up here. For example, we came up here, we would get a house under contract, list it on the MLS with a cooperative agent, and immediately start getting flack from other agents. How can you list this house? You don't even own it yet. Listen, we've got it under contract. We've got the cash to close. We're just trying to get a jump on getting a buyer. Okay. And we do a simultaneous close. In every case, we got a buyer. We became so infamous up here so quick. One of the largest realtor offices here sent out a memo to over 200 agents about us, not to work with us. I mean, it was amazing. Uh, but most of these problems are coming from the board of realtors. They don't want, they feel like we're competition for them. It's just something you're going to have to deal with and find a way to work around. And there are workarounds for different things. Like I said, know your state law. It's why it's so important to know the state you're operating in. Know what the laws and the regulations are, and find a way to operate within the law, but still get done what you want to do. If it gets bad enough, you may have to shift your business model. I mean, that's just what we do. We change constantly, don't we? I mean, we have to adapt. I hope I'm answering your question correctly. Regulation is just something that we're going to have to deal with. We see it go from state to state to state. They tried to tell us we were wholesalers when we were listing. If I got a property under contract, if Justin agreed to, I'll give you an example. If Justin agreed to sell me his property for $150,000, which this is a real example. Okay, so I listed the property on the MLS for market value, okay, which was close to 300. Now, why did Justin agree to sell me his house subject to for 150? Who knows? I mean, he's got his reasoning. But if I put this property on the MLS and I have it under contract, I have an equitable interest in that property. I should be able to list that and sell it. And Angel comes along and she wants to buy it for 280. I should be able to do that, take my 100,000 in profit after fees and move along. But I'll tell you, these guys up here went nuts. Even though I had the money in the bank to close, if Angel hadn't come along, I would have bought the house subject to from Justin as we agreed. My purchase wasn't conditional on having Angel or anybody else as a buyer. I just wanted to get a 30-day jump on bringing that buyer in. If I could do a simultaneous close, and I closed with my own money, some cash, and subject to, and owned it for 5 minutes subject to, and then flipped it to Angel. So, man, we, just get used to it. It's just the life of a real estate investor.
Great answer. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Good answer. Hey, it's good to see Andre pop in the room. Mr. Shepard, good to see you. Thanks for being here, man. You got that mute button on, Andre. Sorry. You'll have to hit the mute button on Zoom.
There it is. Okay. Got it.
It's good to see you, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We've got a question here in the chat, and by the way, thanks for those of you watching. We've got a good audience watching here, and I'm very grateful. Good to see Victor Walker here, the CEO, Stephen Kelly. Hey, one of the questions in the chat is, does it take money? I mean, am I going to have a bunch of money to do a sub-2 deal? I'm a new person. I don't know much about it. I'm learning today. Is this something I can afford to do?
Money always helps. It greases the wheels. It doesn't matter. Can you do deals without money? Sure you can. We've bought many houses where the seller handed us the keys and walked away. I'll give you an example of one we bought last year here. Guy called us up. He said, "Hey, I want to sell my house. I heard your ad on the radio. I really need to get rid of it." And I asked my question I always ask in the course of the conversation. What do you need? He said, "If I can get $5,000 to get into an apartment, and just move along. I'm cool with that. We took over this guy's mortgage for $114,000, wrote him a check for $5,000, sold the house on the MLS for $175. Okay, $60,000 profit on that house. Boom, boom, just like that. Now, this is what you have to ask yourself. If you found a situation like that, and again, remember, we went back to the original question with Angel, proper deal analysis. Was this a deal? This was a no-brainer deal. Okay. Could you find $5,000 to get that deal closed? Man, do you have to have
Grandma,
cash?
somebody.
Somebody is going to lend you
Somebody.
$5,000. And listen, remember, guys, if you read my bio, and I didn't get into this morning because my story, I could talk for 30 minutes about my journey to being a real estate investor. How did I start my business? I made 60 grand a year. It was a family of 4. We had 2 kids. We had expenses. We had a minivan. We had life. And every year we would charge Christmas on credit cards and pay it off with a tax refund. Okay. I lived like everybody else lives out there in the world. I didn't have any money to start a business. How did I start my real estate investing business? I took a $5,000 cash advance. You remember those cash advance checks they would send you? They're starting to do that now. I mean, we're cycling right back around to crazy town. Okay. But remember those cash advance checks they would send you? Borrow 5,000, 10,000 instantly, write a check, deposit it in your bank. I took a $5,000 cash advance off a credit card. I opened a business account and I said, I'm going to use this money for marketing or down payments or earnest money or whatever I need. And if my bank account ever goes bust, I'm back to the restaurant business. And fortunately, I always made more than I spent. Do you have to have money? No, you don't. Will it be easier for you if you can access cash? You bet.
So how much I'm going to tag on to that, because I see these deals posted too in these groups you were talking about. And some of them are like, hey, I put $60,000 down and I'm cash flowing 350 a month and I've got a back end on it of 45,000. And I'm like, okay, is that a good deal? I mean, 60 something thousand down. Like, how do you know 5,000 sounds reasonable? You were just telling a story about 5,000. I can see that, but going to grandma and saying, Grandma, I need $60,000.
Yeah. Listen, and these are the things that scare me. We talked earlier about people that don't analyze a deal properly. They don't know what a good deal is, but they're rah-rahed and cheered on by a group of other people that have never bought a house.
Right.
Because they think a deed means a good deal. And that's just not true. You're making somebody else's problem your problem, and you don't ever want to do that. If you don't remember anything about this hour today, remember this. Certainty. This is any of my students can tell you that's my word. What's the most important part of a deal? And it is certainty. If William analyzes a deal, if he looks at a deal, the only way it's a go is if I am 1,000% absolutely certain I'm going to make money, period. Anything, you can only lose what you have in something, Justin. If I take over payments on your house and I write you a check for 10,000 and you move along and things don't work out, what's the most I can lose?
That 10,000.
$10,000. If I put 60 in it, what's the most I can lose? 60,000. Chances are if I get smart and I don't put more money into something, what's a fair down payment for me or money to put into a deal? Let's just talk about a couple of them we've done this year. I'm sitting in my studio, which is in a house that we bought a couple of months ago, subject to. The seller called me up for my radio ad. He said, listen, I hadn't made this month's payment. I'm not going to be able to make next month's payment. I need to get out of this house. Long story short, we took over a mortgage balance of $220,000 at 3.1%. The PITI on this house is $1,500 a month. 500 of that goes to principal. Okay, that's pretty sweet. We negotiated back and forth a little bit. I told him I could write him a check for $10,000. He said, we're going to think about it. My wife and I, we do everything together. We went out to dinner. He called me after we got to the restaurant and said, make it 12 and we got a deal. We had dinner, went back to his house, signed up all the paperwork. Now, how do the numbers look? We wrote our seller a check for $12,000. The house has a loan balance of $220,000. The value of this house, as it sits right now, about $325,000. Was that a
Wow.
deal?
That's a
You
good ROI.
That's a
That's an
great ROI.
amazing
Yeah.
ROI. And I say that because we moved into this house. We've been living in Airbnbs for 2 years. Now, had I sold this house, had I used this as an investment property, I would have immediately sold it for 325 market value. I would have gotten 8 to 10% down. So 28 to 30,000 down from a buyer. So what would my profit have been on the front end? All this house needed was cleaning carpets and a really good thorough cleaning. It was in great shape, move-in shape. So my profit on the front end, okay, would have been over $15,000 for sure. So that, plug that into your calculator, Justin. I think you'll, as far as a return, you're going to see ease all the way across the screen. I got tops 15 in, 12 to the seller, 3 to clean it up really good. I got 30 down for my buyer. That's a 15,000 in HIP National Bank right out of the gate. I'm going to contract for deed that note at probably 7% interest. So my cash flow is $500 a month. Okay. Now, at this point, my buyer owes me $295. I owe $220. Okay. So we got a $75,000 spread out of the gate. I'm paying down $500 a month to principal. My buyer's paying down what, $50? So my back end grows by $450 a month for every month he's in the house, plus my $500 a month cash flow. Let's fast forward. Average length of time until a person refinances their house or sells it, 7 years. Let's do the math. Okay. So I'm adding $450 a month to my back end for 7 years, $500 a month in my pocket for 7 years. What's my total profit on this deal that cost me 12 grand to get in? What's my total profit in 7 years? About $150,000. Will that work? Anybody here? I mean, that's certainty. That is certainty.
Yeah.
And that's what we look for.
So there's a paradigm shift for new people. What an incredible story, by the way. Wow, just
Yeah. It is.
absolutely mind blowing. I don't mean to gloss over that, but it's a paradigm shift for new people when they come in to the business of real estate investing, learning. And you're talking about earlier how folks just, oh, they're willing to deed me the property. That's a deal. Versus, which is a speculatory deal. You're speculating that that's a deal because you don't,
For sure.
versus the certainty of having kind of thought through the entire process of the transaction for you as the investor, getting it, what you'll do with it, what kind of money you'll make monthly, what kind of profit you'll make on the back end, how much am I required to put in it? Now, is this really truly returning? Is there a certainty of a return on my investment or my buyer's investment? So perfect illustration of that. Stephen Kelly's here in the room. Did you have a question, Stephen? Stephen's one of my favorite guys.
I'm just listening and learning. Thank you, though.
Okay, man, great. Andre, you got a question?
Yeah.
Andre's one of my
So
favorite guys too.
on deals like that, when you're doing subject to, would you ever take out like a DSCR loan based on the cash flows of the property once you've gotten it in place? Like, say, for instance, if there was like a balloon note or anything like that, or would you just simply look to just sell the property to capture those capital gains?
I'll tell you this, Andre. I think you missed that question earlier. We don't do balloons. Okay, we do not do balloons. DSCR loans. I'll tell you, I've been doing this 25 years, and I'm an old guy now, so new terminology. And I've heard what it is, and I think it's a loan based purely on cash flow. Okay,
Right.
but a couple of things. I probably haven't in 15 years borrowed money from a bank. It's just not necessary. Now, in the example I just gave you, when you look at the numbers, we bought this house at 3.1% interest, how much profit am I giving away by going, what is a DSCR loan right now? 10% for an investor?
Yeah, well, it depends on, the buy down, but you can get it as low as 7.5.
Okay. So what does that look like at 7.5? I can still make money on a wrap or a contract for deed at 7.5, but it's greatly reduced. And am I right or wrong that a DSCR loan is going to have a balloon in it? It's not a 30-year amortized mortgage.
No, you can get a 30-year. The only reason that it would make sense is if for some reason the seller wanted to get out from underneath it. I like your model much better.
Right.
And I would do that all day. I was just wondering how you'd be able to structure it if the seller wanted to get from underneath the obligation. That's the only thing I was asking.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you why. I don't like balloons for the reasons that I said earlier. We don't know. We're in a really weird market right now. I feel like we're teetering. We can go either way. We can go off the rails, or they can pull it back in and we can stay fairly stable. The government's really been manipulating a lot of things lately. A year moratorium on foreclosures. Who ever thought that the government would step in and say that lending institutions can't foreclose on people who don't pay? Who ever thought that would happen? Well, and right now we're in a 6-month or a year-long VA foreclosure moratorium. I mean, we're just a step away from them. If it gets out of hand, foreclosures are climbing. We did several foreclosure deals this year, man, that were just fantastic deals that where the seller got money, we got an amazing deal and saved their credit. And I'll tell you, sub 2 lets me rebuild their credit by making on-time payments for a year or 2 years or longer. That really helps. Right. But who knows where it's going to go? For that reason, I agree. Yeah, balloons are for clowns. I can't make that promise. And if a balloon, unless I know my plan A with this property is to list it and sell it immediately, and there's enough equity to do that, and I know I'm going to capture my money in the next 6 months, I would agree with a balloon in that case, if that's my clear path. And we did a few of those this year too. Otherwise, if I've got to rely on a buyer to refinance me out before that balloon pops, and people get divorces and people lose their jobs and this economy's bad, I can't make that promise in good faith, in good conscience. I can't make it. And I don't want to have to give the house back because I'll lose anything I've got in it. Plus, the seller sells to you because they want that headache gone. They don't really want that house back. So I just can't do it. I have to stick with my answer. If that is a deal breaker, I'm so sorry, but I'm not your buyer.
I like that. I think that makes sense. The other thing that really struck me was the marketing that you're doing on it. What type of marketing budget do you have for this? And because I heard you mention radio ads and things of that nature. What type of budget do you have for that?
We're pretty low tech around here. Right now, the only marketing that we do is radio and door knocking on pre-foreclosures. We door knock, we try to make contact, reach out to them. First of all, 80% of the people in foreclosure want to keep their house. So our first step is those people will share all the resources we have and try to help them keep their home. If that proves to be impossible, we move into investor mode. Okay, here's where we are. This is the terrain we currently find ourselves deployed in. This is what we have to do. Okay, Mr. Seller, our focus right now is getting you some cash to start over, saving your credit, and moving forward that way. Radio for us, and we did a Goat Talk episode, which is our Facebook Live we do. I think we did a podcast as well on radio that really breaks down the metrics and how to get the best deal. Our marketing, long answer, but our marketing budget every month is about $3,200. $3,000 for radio, $200 for supplies, for door drops and things like that, and gas money. So the bulk of it is radio.
Very reasonable.
We're on 3 radio stations, by the way, for that $3,000 a month. We run 100 ads a month on each station. So we're out there.
Oh, there you go.
That's
Wow,
great.
that's thorough.
So what's your message
Yeah,
in those radio ads?
right.
Do we
And what
just need to
market?
listen? Are you going to tell me that secret, or do we just need to come listen?
It's no secret, Angel. I believe it's out there on our channel. If I could find it for you on here, if I'd been prepared, I'd play it for you. There is a secret to it. No background music, just me talking, and it basically just says, "Hi, my name's William Tingle with Plan B Properties, and I buy houses cash. Call me today at blah, 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 blah. We'll buy your house if it needs work, if it's got probate issues, if you're in pre-foreclosure, any situation we can help. We've got 25 years of experience helping people with problem properties. Call us today. Let us be your plan B." But it's a 60-second spot. And I'll tell you, I don't know where to do this, Justin. You can help me, but I will get the link to that
I'm
and
looking
give it
for
to
it.
you. And
Yeah.
give it. I tell you what, go to planbprops.com.
Okay.
That's our company website. And my wife converted the audio into sort of a commercial, and you can listen to it there. That's where you can go and listen. It's on the homepage.
It says, "Have you heard us on the radio?" This here, Plan B Props.
That's it.
This is it right here. Yeah, that's great. Super.
So if you
Okay.
click that button, it'll play if you want to listen to it, it'll play it. It's a 60-second spot. We don't change stuff up a lot. We play that average of 5 times a day, all month long, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's it. It's real simple formula. But if you listen to that episode of our podcast, the Sub Two Deals Show, or Goat Talk, that you can find on our YouTube channel, you'll hear me and Randy Thomason talk all about radio. That's where I learned it. He's actually a student of mine in Little Rock, and he's been running radio for about 4 years. And Randy probably buys a good half dozen houses a month, most of it from radio.
Impressive. Title insurance, William. How do you get around that?
Well, there's no getting around it, Andre. We don't get title insurance, and I'll tell you why. One is experience with title insurance. Several years ago, I did a lot of private money lending, and of course, always my investor had to purchase title insurance to protect me. In all the years I've been doing investing, I've had one title insurance claim. It was for a $50,000 loan, really small loan. And I had to fight for 3 years to get the title insurance company to pay me. It was a clear case of oversight. The title company had overlooked a security deed. It was in Georgia. They had completely overlooked it and missed it. So somebody was ahead of me in the chain of title. For that purpose, I couldn't foreclose. I couldn't get the property. I had a very clear case, and they twisted and turned and denied and denied. I had to hire a lawyer. In the end, I just settled for my principal, no lost interest, no lost use of money, and they finally reluctantly paid me 3 years of my time. And that premium was paid, and it should have been a slam dunk. For that reason and numerous other reasons, I think title insurance is useless. Now, remember this. When I buy a property from Sally and Sam Seller, 99 times out of 100, they're going to have institutional financing with Bank of America, Arvest, some big lender. And I guarantee you they have title insurance from their purchase date to the end of time. They have title insurance. Now, so all I really have to concern myself with is what's happened since Sally and Sam bought that house. Have they gotten liens and judgments? Have there been quitclaim deeds back and forth? Have there been a lot of strange things going on? And we're going to look at that very closely. Most people that you're going to meet bought their house. A deed was recorded from the seller to them. They got a mortgage. Boom, that's that. So do I feel comfortable that there have been no shenanigans between their purchase date and today? If I do, I'm okay with no title insurance because I know I've got title insurance from them back. For that reason, I'm cool with it. Been doing this a really long time. Never had an issue, knock on wood.
So do you pull title to confirm if there's been any transfers? How
Always, always. A sub-2 purchase is just a matter of financing. The same common sense steps of buying a house apply. Always get a title insurance. Always, always, always. Always, if you're in the South, have a termite inspection. Always do it. Have an inspection if you're not comfortable with conditions of a house or looking at things, or don't have a cousin Eddie that can go by that fixes stuff and takes a look.
Right.
Always do those same things you would have to do if you bought for cash or bought with bank financing, except the title insurance part. That's just, in my opinion, that's just not necessary. But you always want to know what you're buying.
So you get the report, you just don't get the insurance policy.
You just don't get the insurance. And
I
if
get
you
it.
have a good relationship with your title company, most of those guys will do that for you for free or $5. Just ask for a current owners and encumbrances report, an O&E, and they'll bring it forward from the current owner. You can take a look at it. They'll tell you what they think. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, especially for some of the newer investors, just knowing to check that report. Even like you said, if you don't have to have the policy, getting the report is crucial.
I'm telling you, you have to do it because sometimes people have liens and judgments. Sometimes somebody will try to sell you a house and they're not the only owner. It happens. And for that reason, you've got to have that title report, or you just don't know what you're buying. And the bigger problem, you may be getting it for free. They're handing you the keys, they're leaving, you got no money in it. But when you sell that house to a buyer, and a few years down the road, they call you up and they go, hey, we just got approved for our refi. We're going to close in 30 days. And you can't deliver good title. You got a problem on your hands. Okay. So you got to check that stuff. And things pop up. We bought a house last year from a girl in pre-foreclosure. And, most people that aren't paying their house payment, that ain't the only thing they're not paying. Okay.
Right.
The house payment's the last thing they stop paying, the house or the car. And sure enough, we had agreed to do the deal. We were a couple of days from closing, and a Discover, lien for $9,000 popped up on top. I mean, we reevaluated. We could have backed out, but it was still a smoking deal. And we took title subject to that lien as well as the mortgage. Liens and judgments don't have to be paid off today. The longer they sit, the more likely that lien holder will take a discount. And if they sit long enough, guess what? Depending on the laws in your state, that lien falls away and you don't have to pay it anyway. So we don't pay off liens and judgments. If they're sitting there, we'll take it subject to those two. If the numbers make sense, you got to add them in because you may have to satisfy them in full, but we routinely let liens and judgments sit.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. So let's talk about technology, because everybody is lost in the sauce today. And what I mean is the technology soup that we swim in. And there's this blaster, that blaster, this cold caller, this platform for getting notice of defaults. You say you work pre-foreclosures and in your markets. You go door knocking and all of that. That's pretty manual, but you're getting data someplace. There's no other technology that you're using other than radio, which is their technology. What are we talking about? Is there any bells and whistles I gotta buy?
These young people especially, they think they've got to have 10 cell phones and this text blaster and this skip tracer and this and that. We use 3 pieces of technology, if you will. One is PropStream. PropStream isn't perfect, but it will give you information. If Angel calls me and she says, hey, I heard your radio ad, I want to sell my house. And I'll say, great, Angel, what's the address? And I'm looking. Before I even get to, Angel, is there a mortgage on this property? I know. Before I even get to, Angel, what does your payment run every month? I know. Pretty close to what she's got. Okay. And we use that for informational purposes. Is it perfect? It's slow to respond to market trends. When prices were soaring, it was slow to keep up. Prices are coming down a little. It's slow to keep up. You can't use it for everything, but for $97 a month, it delivers a lot of value. Okay. The second thing we use is a CRM, a customer, I don't even know what it stands for, but what it does is
Right.
if Angel won't deal with me today, if I pitch subject to her or a price is too low and she says, I just don't think I can do that. I'm going to go, listen, I get it. I want you to get the best price too. Is it okay if I check in with you from time to time and see how things are going? There's 99.9% probability Angel's going to say, absolutely. Okay. And what am I going to do? I'm going to plug her into a workflow in my CRM. And every couple, 3 weeks, she's going to get a text from me or an email or a ringless voicemail that's going to say, hey, Angel, this is William, just checking back in. Wanted to see how things are going at 123 Oak Street. If I can help or be a resource in any way, please reach out. There's going to be a variation of that. And she's going to hear from me until the end of time because it just loops. There's 10 or 15 different messages, so she can't catch on that it's not me. And until, I think that's another Ron LeGrand quote, once they're on my radar, they're going to get marketed to until they sell, die, or tell me to go where the sun is. Okay. So that's what I'm going to do to Angel. And one day Angel may pick up the phone and call me and go, William, I'm ready. I got to unload this house. What can we do? Okay. So that's what I use a CRM. I think it's really important. And then lastly is a skip trace service. Now my CRM costs me about $125 a month between the text that I use and the service. And there are a lot of them out there and you can use cheaper ones or whatever. And it also lets me track my marketing because every marketing thing we do has a different telephone number. So when my phone rings, it either says foreclosure, bandit sign, radio. I know exactly where that call's coming from. So I can track KPIs if I want to do that. I'm usually too lazy to do that. I know the deals are good enough. Okay. So the last thing we use is a skip trace, a deep skip trace service. And we use IDI. The cool thing about IDI is it's a per use service. So if I don't use it this month, you know what my bill is? $0. It's $1.25 a search. And we use that. If I go door knocking for pre-foreclosures and find an empty house, that's gold because this means that person doesn't want to keep that house. They've moved on. So if I can track them down, chance and say, hey, listen, what are you guys doing about your house? Oh man, we moved. We don't want it. Okay. So if I paid you $500, would you sign a deed for me? All I got to do is find them. For $1.25, I can find them almost every single time. So we use those 3 things. We don't text blast. We don't cold call. We don't do any of that stuff. I target radio brings in leads. If somebody picks up the phone to call on your radio ad for We Buy Houses, they've already pre-screened themselves. They're fairly motivated. They know who we are. Okay. They know it's going to be a low price or something along those lines. Pre-foreclosures, those people have what I call drop dead dates. They got a hard date they're up against. They got problems. Okay. So we go out. It takes us about a day every week to drive around and we drive for dollars while we're doing it. We go to lunch. I mean, it ain't like breaking rocks. Okay. Right. So we drive around, go to some houses, knock on some doors, have some conversations. But that's it. We're not high tech at all. And we still manage to buy 12 to 15 houses a year. But the average profit, like last year, our average profit on a deal was over $70,000. So you don't have to buy many. These people that talk about, man, I'm buying 20 houses this month, they're crazy. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I'm an old guy.
Right.
I want to take it easy.
Yeah.
I want to take my wife to Hawaii for 2 weeks for our anniversary.
There you
know
go.
what I'm saying?
Right.
I want to go. Yeah, I want to travel and do stuff. And buying 20 houses a month, man, that doesn't allow you to do stuff. But buying 1 or 2 every month lets you have time and quality of life. I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, Justin, but I'm just really
you're singing my song now, man.
Passionate about that, about not just making a bunch of money, but having the time to enjoy it. Make good deals.
Make that right.
I'd rather make 1 fantastic deal this month than 5 that were, it's a lot less work. It's a lot more fun.
I've had gigs in life where I made lots of money and had no time to even go get a haircut.
Right.
That's right.
What good is that?
Yeah, that's right. Because
Yeah.
you know what? I mean, you got a drop dead date too. You just don't know when it is.
Ooh,
Right.
come
Tell
on,
that
man.
truth. Yeah, that's the
Jeez.
truth there. Yeah.
I'll tell you guys about something that's not real estate related, but I saw somebody was talking about this somewhere, and you can go, it's a Google Chrome extension, and it's called something, how many Sundays you have left. And it takes into consideration the average lifespan. It asks you just a couple of questions, your sex and your date of birth and things like that. And it's set up to where when you open Chrome, it's the first thing that pops up every day. And what happens is it has a big block with all of your Sundays. They're tiny little blocks. And wherever you are in life, they're all red up until today. And I did this a couple of years ago, and 3/4 of my Sundays are gone.
Wow.
And there's something very sobering about having that right in front of you that says this is how much time you have left. It's not a
Wow.
date. It's a big thing with most of
Right.
it gone. And that's if you're lucky enough to live the average life expectancy.
Right.
That was so disturbing to me. I had to delete it because I
Mm.
could look at that every day. But I try to live consciously
I get it. I get it though. I get it. I get it.
that I don't want to die with $10 million in the bank. You know what I'm saying? I'm going
Right.
to enjoy, right? I'm going to enjoy.
Or 20 deals in the pipeline. Right.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah, that was a great one.
Man.
That was a great one. That was a great
Wow.
one.
Yeah, you're a deep fellow when you get to know you, William.
I don't know how deep I am. I tell you some things though. It's just it's really, I think the way life is designed these days. George Carlin, if you ever followed him, he was
The comedian. Yeah.
he really had it right on a lot of levels. He said life is set up to keep you so busy just trying to survive and run on the hamster wheel that you don't have time to pay attention to what's really going on. And when you become financially free, when you have the time to pay attention, man, there's a lot of scary stuff out there. You know what I'm saying? Well, I don't get into politics stuff. I don't care what anybody believes. I believe what I believe, and that's all that matters to me. But it's just like going on vacation. If you go on your dream vacation, say to Hawaii, I learned this 10, 15 years ago. You go on your dream vacation to Hawaii, what's most people's vacation? A week, 10 days? A day to fly, a few days to run around and see stuff, a day to come home, you're exhausted. But I went to Hawaii and I said, man, this place is great. I want to go back. So I took my whole family back for 6 weeks. And what you find when you vacation for a period of time, you learn things about the place. You learn, for example, that 60+% of the population of Hawaii is Japanese. And that a lot of Hawaii is rented leased land for 100 years or whatever, and those leases are expiring. And that Native Hawaiians don't want to be a state in the United. You learn a lot of stuff that you didn't know before when you start reading the newspaper and paying attention. And most people just don't have the time today. They're busy worried about how am I going to pay the rent this month, or how am I going to buy groceries, or my God, the transmission just went out in my car at $7,000. What can I do? I don't have the money. But when you become financially free, you start paying attention. And one of the things you need to pay attention to is that the end is coming, whenever it may be. So make the most of your life. Have a good time.
Wow.
Great point. Great point.
That is great. That's super good. We got about 2-3 minutes here left. How can people find you, William? Is there a website that you want us to go to that we can sign up for? Because I gotta have more.
Yeah,
I gotta have more. It's like honey dripping off your lips, man.
You know what? I've never been much of a salesperson. We have courses and coaching, but let me give you the best way to find me and learn more about me. And then if you want to invest in coaching or courses, it'll tell you where to find me. Go to sub2tv.com. It's SUB 2TV.com. That's our YouTube channel. We release a video just about every day. and it doesn't cost a nickel, and you can learn the stuff we've been talking about today is all we talk about over there. Sub2tv.com. That's the best place to get to know us and what we teach and what we talk about. Check it out. That's it. Sub2tv.com. We'd love it if you'd subscribe. That would really make us happy.
Like, subscribe, comment, share, get involved.
Ask questions. We'll answer them. We do a live. I'd like to say regularly, but we do miss a case. If we're on vacation or something, sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't. But we do a YouTube live the first 3 Tuesdays of most months, and we'll take your questions live. We'll answer them. It's usually on a topic, but we will just answer questions just like we've done today. So you guys join us. We'd love to have you.
That's one of those few things in life, if you're out there listening, that it's one of those few things in life where you are 100% on the receiving end of it. You don't have to put in anything other than your brain.
That's right.
It. Plug it in.
Yeah.
This has been awesome, William. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, Angel, for being here too, and Lee and everyone
else. Had a great
else.
time. Yep.
Thank you. I had a great time too. Is there anything else that anyone would like to share before we wrap up? Anyone besides William? Okay. William, was anything you'd like to say before we wrap up here? I've really enjoyed this today, by the way. Super good content.
I've loved being here. I'll tell you this. I actually sign off on my podcast and Goat Talk with this. Technology, whatever it is you do, talk to sellers and you'll buy houses. It's just that simple.
Right.
Conversations. The fastest path to cash is a conversation.
It's simple, huh?
Yeah.
If you look at it like that, that's beautiful. And I concur. Anytime I complicate it, it doesn't work as good.
Yep. It can be super simple and it can be very complicated, but keep things simple. Yep.
Hey, William, awesome meeting you here today. Thank you so much again for your time. Tell your wife, your lovely wife, that we appreciate you, her letting you come here and spend time with us. And we'll let you get back to your good vacation style life.
That's right. Good to be here, Justin. If you ever want me to come back, be glad to do it. So
I'd love to. Yeah, we'll do that on the regular if that's okay.
Let me know.
Sounds good, man.
You guys have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.